The oxytocin drip is the expression they use in hospitals. There's no such thing as an oxytocin drip. There's such a thing as a Synotocinon drip, and that is a man-made, human-made product that is introduced to a woman's bloodstream via a cannula in the back of her hand. And that cannula will be a needle about this long, which prevents her from moving very easily. It's really quite an uncomfortable procedure having a cannula fitted. And then this drip is fed to her over a period of hours normally. It's actually, funnily enough, not licensed for use in labour, but it's used in labour nonetheless. And synotocinon, like oxytocin, causes the uterus to contract. Great! What could be the problem? Well, synotocinon, unlike oxytocin, puts a woman and her baby into something that is known as the sympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic nervous system sounds much nicer than it is. It's actually sympathetic to the environment, and so it is what causes us to go into fight or flight mode. So it has a sympathy to threat. So the sympathetic nervous system takes blood away from the internal organs and it sends it to the skeletal muscles, the muscles of the arms and the legs. And this is so that the person who is feeling under threat can fight with their fists or fly with their legs. We really do not want to be in our sympathetic nervous system when we're in labour, ladies. We really don't. And the reason for that is that adrenaline, which causes us to go into the sympathetic nervous system, works in a negative feedback loop with oxytocin, which is nature's amazing hormone, and it literally shuts it down. So the more adrenaline there is in your system, the less oxytocin there will be, and the fewer and less efficient the contractions will be. It's nature's way of guarding a birthing woman from danger. Conversely, the synotocinon. No. Conversely, oxytocin puts us into our parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is where you do want to be in labour. The parasympathetic nervous system, think parachutes and paragliding and softness and ease. When we're in our parasympathetic nervous system, we feel calm, we feel relaxed. It has a little name, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system of rest and digest. So it's the place where we can feel relaxed, we feel calm, and blood is sent to our internal organs. What's the internal organ that's involved with labour and childbirth? That'll be the uterus. And the uterus is covered, particularly towards the end of a pregnancy and as the baby's ready to be born, it generates, nobody really knows how, but lots of oxytocin receptors start to pop up all over the uterus. And these receptors receive the oxytocin, which says contract. And there's something really, really important. You know, I said to you about how synotocinon gets into the bloodstream straight through the back of the hand, and it never crosses the blood-brain barrier. Oxytocin, on the other hand, is made in the brain. It's made in an organelle called the hypothalamus, and it's stored in the posterior pituitary gland. You don't have to know all of this stuff, but what you do have to understand if you're about to have a baby is that you need the oxytocin that comes from the brain, because as it passes through the brain recognises it and says, oxytocin, I know oxytocin. I have oxytocin coursing around my body when I've just had an orgasm, or when I'm hanging out with my mates and having a giggle, or when I'm looking at one of my children's photographs, or when I'm nursing my child. These are places where oxytocin, this woman here behind me, she has got lots of oxytocin flowing. As she holds her baby close to her, she can sniff the baby's head. It's a beautiful thing, but we don't get this when we have synotocinon. Synotocinon messes with the body. It has the same effect of causing the uterus to contract, but it doesn't have all the other effects that oxytocin has, which is to be calming and to be relaxing and to help the body to create its own structure of pain relief. Basically, there's an enormous cascade of hormones that goes on when we release oxytocin. Other hormones are caused to release, and all of this is beautifully orchestrated by Mother Nature. But somewhere along the line, somebody, probably a man, decided that women's babies needed to be pumped out of their uteruses. And synotocinon has no discernment at all. It doesn't recognise any stress. It doesn't reduce if there's adrenaline. So actually what can happen is this horrible effect of a woman raising, her adrenaline's rising and rising, and yet these contractions are still going. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and it happened to me, of just being sent into some kind of stress trauma response. Literally, after I had my first child, who was born by induction, after she was born, I just shook. I shook from head to toe. It was terrifying. If I hadn't had the wonderful euphoric experience of giving birth to her vaginally, I might have had the experience that somebody I saw not long ago was also having, of actually being terrified of dying, because what was going on in her body was just all wrong. So, no, synotocinon is not oxytocin, and we need to stop this language because it's very, very confusing. People just think, oh, well, I'm just having some oxytocin. Oxytocin's good in childbirth, right? Yes, oxytocin is great in childbirth. Not so much the synotocinon, though, known as Picton in the States. It's fake. It's man-made. If you think about maybe eating a strawberry, a nice strawberry, not one that's been force-riped, compared to eating strawberry-flavoured something or other, it's the same kind of thing. It's not real. And I would argue that far too many women are being subjected to this particular drug, which is not beneficial. It can be in a pathological situation if a baby absolutely needs to come out, but post-dates, which is what I was given for my firstborn, it's not a good enough reason. Neither is BMI, neither is growth. I mean, there are things around growth, but we need to dig deeper into them. Now, I am a bit of an overview person. Shelley Poulter and Kemi Johnson have they're in the middle of doing this amazing series about induction. Bless her, Shelley is reading 30 plus papers every week to deliver this information to us. And I'm going to link in the show notes their podcast, which I really encourage you to find out some more about. I'm going to specifically link their one about oxytocin and synotocinon. So I'm going to stop.